It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
PenFed's got great rates for everyone.
What is up, everyone? I'm Jeff Lund, and this is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast. Talking with Jaden Bales today from the Backcountry Fuel Box. Thanks for taking some time out of your morning to join me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for getting up early to kind of accommodate my schedule. I really appreciate it.
Well, I usually wake up around 5:15 to get ready, but that's the slow get ready because I need to be ready by 8 o'clock when the kids show up. The students, they're freshmen, so all it does is get me going a little bit faster, which is not a problem. So
Nice. You said you've got freshmen?
Yeah, I teach 2 periods of freshman English, 2 periods of science fiction English, and then 1 period of journalism.
Dude, God bless you. Someone's got to do it.
It's a great gig, man, especially if you're in Alaska. So,
yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I first came into contact with some of the backdoor box type stuff a couple of years ago, but I've never subscribed to it. It was 2 weekends in a row that a buddy of mine up here had stuff from one of the boxes, or the Backcountry Fuel boxes, and I thought, man, this is kind of interesting. He's getting some good stuff in there. And then I went online, checked you guys out, and then I did the math. And I got my first box a couple days ago, which is why I wanted to have you on. I did the math. It's actually much cheaper for an Alaskan because you're looking at $2.50 to $3 per bar up here because you ship it up here. And even though Ketchikan is big city Alaska, it's still on an island.
Right.
And so there's like 14 bars in here, or there are 14 products in here. So this makes total sense. It's much cheaper than buying the stuff at the grocery store. So that was pretty sweet. So. How do you get the stuff? Where do you get the stuff? And how'd you get involved in this?
Oh, yeah, man. Well, thanks for giving us a shot. I got involved with it originally because I was a listener of the Rich Outdoors podcast. You said you listened to that, right? With Cody Rich?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was selling ad space, doing digital marketing with a magazine company in Oregon, and I was kind of like, okay, I think I need to do something a little bit more outdoors oriented. And then Cody said, hey guys, like I'm starting this new Backcountry Fuel Box project. And I was like, dude, I like snacks. I like the outdoors. I like Cody Rich. And I was like, let's see if we can't work on this thing together. So right when he launched it, I kind of got involved just trying to piece things together, and I kind of have an entrepreneurial spirit myself, so Cody and I get along pretty dang well, and we just started basically putting the box together from what we saw on Instagram, what people recommended to us, and then other stuff that we really wanted to try. Cody, as most folks know who's listened to the podcast, avid backcountry hunter, does a lot of pack trips, that kind of deal. So he built the box originally for himself. And then I like to hunt quite a bit. I do a lot of backcountry skiing too. So it was just like that whole combination of like, man, I really got to dial in my nutrition. And like kind of concurrently during this time, I'm figuring out that my body's metabolism has slowed down a ton. So I'm like getting my nutrition, my, and my workouts like kind of dialed so that I can operate like at the highest level in the mountains, and Cody does the same thing. And we're like, dude, I think this box right here is one great step forward for folks, especially maybe if you're living in Alaska or if you're even in Laramie, Wyoming, like me, where you have like pretty limited supplies to some really quality foods and snacks and stuff for the backcountry that'll keep you going. It's a really good option for folks to like try new things without being super you don't have to buy a big bulk pack of one meal or something for your next 6-day trip or whatever case comes up to be.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm concerned about it is that it would be very easy for me to take it and then put it in my desk at school and be like, that's the teacher's snack box. Because every teacher has, I'm sure most people have the snack drawer.
Yeah.
But then you're going through all this high quality stuff. Like, man, I'm not wasting it on my science fiction lit class, but this is probably better served on the mountain here.
So it's funny, like I really try to pull from a bunch of different sources. Like you'll see in here, there's in this month's box there was a banana bites thing, and I'm like, that's not normally a backcountry like food, but the idea is if you're on a 6-7 day trip and you're not been getting any fruit and hardly any vegetables, you're going to be needing some of that extra potassium from those banana bites. So I think they fit well in your desk, man. But that's because there's like kind of like a wide variety of things that really do fill you up and fuel you in the backcountry that I think are good for everyday use too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of entrepreneurial things out there when it comes to the outdoors. You've got boxes, you've got magazines, there's a ton of that out there.
Right.
So there are a lot of great ideas that we've heard about, and there's a lot of great ideas that we never have because it hasn't worked out for whoever tried to start it. So what was it specifically that attracted you to this, not only as an idea, but as something that, it could be a job that you have, right? You don't want to go all in something that's going to be 3 months and then, oh man, what do I do now? So what attracted you to this?
So I'm pretty risk loving, I guess, to put it in a technical term. Like, I was betting on the jockey, which is Cody Rich, and I knew he's got a really good entrepreneurial spirit because I actually had started a marketing agency myself right out of college, and it went flat pretty quick. And everything that comes along with like trying to start a business at all, you're probably going to tap into all your savings and then start living off ramen for a while. So like that whole process was something I was super comfortable with. And when you look at a crowded space in the outdoor industry, I was really welcoming that challenge. And I think Backcountry Fuel Box does a really good job of acknowledging the niche it sits in and the fact that Cody and I are users of this stuff. Like, it is much easier for us to get behind a product that we are customers of as well. When you look at the outdoor space, it's really kind of crowded because there's a lot of people who do stuff in the outdoor space because it's their passion. But after failing not in the outdoor space with the business, like I figured, like at least this will be fun. Doesn't matter if I fail it, or if we do well or if we don't do well. Though, as Cody puts it, like failure isn't really an option.
Yeah. Well, that's I've talked to a buddy of mine who he is just finished medical school, and he talked about how there couldn't be a plan B, and
right.
We talk about this has to work. I have to do everything that I can to make this work. You have to have that sense of urgency,
right?
And then there's also as a teacher, I'm telling kids, hey, you know what, kids have a backup plan, and just in case. I'm like, wait. What should I really tell them? Is that kind of disservice to them to say, have this plan B? Because at some point the plan B is going to look easier and it's going to look better. And so you might be tempted to take plan B. So it's kind of a weird thing where I said that I had to go all in and it had to work. And you're saying that just because it worked or going through it. So it's kind of a weird lifestyle.
But I think you see it working on both ends. Like look at, for instance, look at Phelps Game Calls. Jason Phelps still has his job. I think he's an engineer, right? But he also has a company that's doing really well and has multiple people working for him. So that's a prime example of where someone did more of like a plan B type situation where he's got like a steady income and then wants to work on something on the side. And then you've got a Cody Rich situation where he's like, nope, we're doing this and moving forward. I think people need to be understand what their strengths are and know if you are risk loving, like someone like me or Cody, it's okay to go all in and just go full balls to it. But if you are someone who's maybe a little more risk averse, Yeah, it's probably a good idea to be an engineer on the side, or I know that you like have a side hustle with this thing. Like you're a teacher and then you do this on the side. I think both are really good like avenues to take, especially in the outdoor world where you have a lot of people who are just passionate about it.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a couple different parts of the outdoor thing too. People have talked about. I do a column,
Mhm.
and so I'm writing like, "Oh, you should be a full-time writer." I'm like, "No, I don't want to," because
Yeah.
then it would be like my entire life would be dependent upon that, and it's not the side hustle. There's the fun wouldn't be there. If I tried to, if the podcast had to be my sole source of income, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
But having that, it's still fun. My buddies who are fishing guides, I'm like, well, you're not fishing, you're guiding, right? And some people love that because they're getting other people onto the fish, but
Right.
that means fishing. It's different. So,
It-
how have your passions changed a little bit as you're doing this? Because there's a business aspect to it. But you said you love the risk, so
Yeah, well, okay. So this is a really good litmus test. Like I'm a podcast junkie. It's kind of how I got here in the first place, listening to Cody's podcast and stuff. But I looked at it this way: what are the podcasts I'm listening to? When I was working in marketing and like really deep in kind of more business oriented conversations, not related to anything outdoors, I found myself listening to like purely outdoors podcasts, like hunting podcasts mostly, and then some skiing podcasts, stuff like that. And then as I've shifted and become fully enveloped in like more of talking about outdoor related activities, doing more outdoor type marketing for the business and stuff, I find myself listening to more business podcasts and like self development and like leadership type podcasts. And that's how I know like I feel like you're always going to find the grass is greener if you did one thing different. But when you are seeing like a shift in your preferences like that, I think that is a good litmus test for like where you're at in life.
yeah, I'm a big fan of the personal growth stuff. I don't like self-help
Right.
that makes some sort of this is the plan. The plan's going to work for you, or these steps are going to work for you. I like the taking accountability and responsibility of it. The leadership stuff, love that stuff too.
Yeah, what's like the latest podcast you've listened to in that realm?
I do mostly the reading on that aspect.
Okay.
But I like the Rogan podcast, and I like Tundra Talk with Tyler Friel.
Yeah.
It's just the format of it, because they're so dialed in. They know what they're talking about, but they don't have any sort of, just like dudes sitting around talking,
Right.
which is, I really like that format a whole lot. And when I started my podcast, I thought, well, I've only been hunting for about 8 years. I'm not going to pretend to say that I know everything. And I thought, well, what about just this dude lives in Ketchikan. He does things, and he's going to be honest about every time that he screws up.
Yeah.
Doing podcast on the mountain we can hardly hear. Just like kind of, just be honest. I'm going to be the honest Alaskan, and I'm going to admit that I'm mediocre at times, but still.
Dude, the one thing I've noticed as I've like kind of gotten, I guess, a little closer to some of these guys who are really good hunters or really good businessmen or women or whatever, I feel like most folks will get to a place where they are doing one thing really well, but will never accept the fact that like they're looked at as an expert in a deal because they look up to someone else, like there's never an end point for any person.
Yeah. There's always that humility, and that's I think the true mark of an expert is that everyone calls that person the expert, but they don't call themselves the expert.
Right. There's always another finger to point towards another person who does something super well in a different way that they haven't gotten down.
Yeah. There was one show, I don't know where it was. I found it on YouTube, or it may have been on Netflix, but the whole intro was this guy and all the experience he had. And I thought, wait, I don't really, what are you doing here? What's this? What are you doing? And it was just he was trying to validate himself, it seemed like, in the intro. Right? This is not good at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Randy Newberg attaches himself to the word hunter because, well, he is, right? And that's not a stretch at all. I mean, he's one of the icons.
Right.
With Ranella, I mean, that's fine. You guys do whatever you want.
Yeah. So
even there.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those deals where those guys, like we like oftentimes like to talk about the people in the industry. Well, like people in the industry includes everyone who also hunts and fishes and has an Instagram profile, whatever. Like I think that's an easy way to like narrow it down. But the like most well known folks in the industry, I think it's clear to see like they have a story that they're telling that the rest of folks can kind of relate to in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's Randy Newberg's like DIY public land type approach, or it's Tim Burnett's solo hunter type approach, which
Yeah.
I like a lot of his shows. I hunt solo a lot, and then obviously like the meat eater aspect, like everyone, and that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Like everyone's kind of got their niche that they fit in, so that we can relate to what the message is that they have to share with folks.
Yeah. Have you seen those? Are you on Facebook and you get those masterclass advertisements?
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's one I was just kind of scrolling through, and there was Steve Mars. Oh, that's cool. And I just kind of looked at the appetizer, and he said, "Whatever makes you unique, do it, and know that there's room for you." I was like, that makes total sense, right? And that's just, and there's like this two sides. You have the consumer side, and these people consume the quotes, and then you have the other side. They live the quotes, and they are the ones who say these things that we then look at and think, "Oh man, that's the way to do it." But you have to believe it, and you have to find, and you have to be okay with that. And I think a lot of people turn themselves off because they say, "Well, I can't do that because, Randy Newberg gets to go hunt wherever he wants, and he has people looking for tags, and he has all this time." And but he worked to get to that point. Like he didn't just start out last week and just get sponsored and do anything. It's that work and getting through it. And you can sit there and think that you're a victim, and well, I'll never draw this tag, or I'll never be able to do this. Well, there's ways to figure that stuff out.
Oh yeah,
and you can do that.
Oh, totally. I have, I think that same mentality where it's like, there's not, I just don't really put up with excuses. I'm like, there shouldn't be an excuse, when you look at like, if you dive into some of these people's stories, Randy Newberg was an accountant up until 12 years ago or something. The dude's I think he's in his mid 50s, so he lived his whole life as average Joe Blow before being able to go like start his TV show and do the whole media production, right? I think people oftentimes will look at the surface and think that it was easy to get there. And this is where I'm at now, because I definitely feel like I'm in the middle of the journey, but when you look into these stories and you find out how something actually happened, I think it gives folks a lot more hope that you can end up on that mountain goat hunt or traveling to New Zealand or doing these things, Yeah.
But transition a little bit here. Speaking of going to New Zealand or wherever, what would be a hunt that you would love to do that's kind of on your list?
Oh, that actually the New Zealand hunt is something that I've been trying to plan. So I have a good friend of mine who's I'm going to call her his fiance just for ease of use. But his fiance is from New Zealand, and we were actually trying to put this all together this year. And it's one of those deals where he was like, "Oh." A couple weeks ago, he was like, "Yeah, come down in February." And I was like, "Okay, like 6 months or whatever. That's a little close on timing." But, it's one of those things where if I set aside a couple dollars, I'm able to also time it so that my girlfriend and I can go down and call it a vacation. I have to be careful with that one, though, because it can't be just like a hunt vacation if I bring her, because that never goes out well. But you get the idea. Like, that's the one I'm really planning. I think it is the most accessible as well, because you don't have to draw tags. You don't have to have like guide fees or anything associated with the hunt. You just go and kind of send it into the New Zealand backcountry. So that's the one I'm really excited about. Yeah.
Nice. I'm because I still consider myself new. I've killed a couple black bear, one with my truck, unfortunately. Yeah. Mostly with black deer, so I haven't done anything outside of those two things. So I can't even get my brain around what it would be like to hear elk bugling. So when I'm down there this next week, I mean, that's going to be like the dream hunt to just be. My girlfriend has the tag, but just being out there and experiencing that. So I think like elk and mule deer are absolutely, it's hard for me to focus on anything else. And then up here, a moose and a caribou. So I'm already overwhelmed with just thinking about those 4 things and the logistics of making that happen.
Dude, so mountain goat isn't up there yet for you? It's not on. It's not.
Oh, I forgot about that one. So I'm so like, next week is going to be such just I'm like, I can't sleep. I just wake up and I'm thinking about, I just drew the doe antelope tag, which would be awesome. I'm really excited for that. And I think that's what I deserve. I can't start off with some massive elk. I got to start with like a cow elk, you know, a doe antelope, and then work up from there, because I think I'd just be overwhelmed.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Dude, and this is something that you might have heard us talking about on Cody Rich's podcast. Like, I've lived in the West my entire life. I've hunted elk most falls, especially the last like 5 falls I've been hunting for myself. And I still haven't shot an elk. You know, like it's one of those deals where it's something that is just, you know, there are things that just elude you for some reason. And, you know, once you get the bug, it's really hard to kick it. So good luck next week, obviously. But I'm also saying good luck for future hunts, because I know it's not going to be your last time in the elk woods. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about, if you have someone that you know in the state, it makes a lot, because Wyoming is everything is complex compared to Alaska. If you just look at, I live in Unit 1, and so it has, here's your season for everything in Unit 1. Here are how many bear you can get and the time. Then black bear and mountain goats and where you can draw. I mean, it's all here. It's very, very easy and simple to figure out. And you don't need any sort of special, some of you need special tags, but it's all free.
Right.
I can get 4 deer and I can get 2 bear. And so it's so easy. And so looking at Wyoming, where your Unit 43 elk could be like Unit 10 antelope, which is then Unit 15 deer, it's just overwhelming.
Oh man, it's super complex. But I also so coming from Oregon to Wyoming, it's difficult to understand the new state. However, I'll caveat that with saying this is one of the better states for management, and I really like how they manage it once you get through the complexity. You know, it's also, and we'll talk about this. You and I will probably talk about this offline about kind of the places you're looking at going for elk and stuff.
Offline for sure.
Yeah. So, but with elk, for instance, I guess we should back up real quick and just to clear the air. So your girlfriend is getting her PhD here at the University of Wyoming in Laramie, correct? Okay, so is mine, and that's what brings me here. So you're coming down next week, and your girlfriend's got her first big game tags, correct? Okay, yeah. So she's got a deer tag and honestly, it's a really good unit, and I'm surprised that she put in for a unit instead of just getting a general tag, but that's neither here nor there. And then she's got a cow tag for the local elk units, right?
Yeah, it was the general. I think she did general season archery cow elk.
Okay. And
If that makes
yeah, you and I we'll talk about these details offline a little bit just to make sure you guys are set on the right foot. One thing that's weird about Wyoming though is like you can't is she from Wyoming?
she has residency there now. Yeah.
Okay, so then she's fine because that area where you guys are going is a wilderness area, roughly. Like there's 2 of them in there, and you can't have non-residents in that wilderness area. So without a resident guide, and those kinds of deals, like whether they were brought on from pressure from outfitters or they were a matter of public safety. There's a lot of reasons for why they are a law, but now that they are a law, it's hard to get them any changes done to them. And folks coming from out of state who might not have noticed that law, like, can get themselves in big trouble. So, it's tough when you're looking at it. It's kind of daunting when you're looking at going to a new state and trying new regulations, which is also, here's full swing, why I like the idea of going to New Zealand.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I talked to Lee Knox and Adam from the Right to Roam podcast, and I was kind of the phase 1 of figuring out that sort of stuff. And so it was helpful. And then once you kind of get it, you get it. And she totally understands it. And my antelope tag will be, there's the Laramie River, because mostly private land, but then a separate application to get a permission slip to hunt this spot. And so there's like a different level there, but I got the permission slip all printed out, so we're ready to go.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that won't take you very long. It doesn't matter what unit it is around here. You'll find a dope pretty quick.
I'm cautiously optimistic because I usually have this idea that until it's done, let's not get too crazy. So I'm very optimistic. However, I do understand how things go haywire.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think I'm excited to start that.
Well, again, we'll talk specifics offline, but there are some HMAs, hunter management areas that you could probably walk to from town and fill your tag. So you'll be fine. So yeah, no, but one of those deals, those guys at Right to Roam podcast, Adam and Lee, are awesome dudes. I haven't talked as much with Adam, but Lee literally lives, I can almost see his house from my office window. Like, he lives right here. He's a good dude. And that's one of the things, like, people I think probably he's going to hate me for saying this. People probably underutilize their local biologists to find out information about what's happening in the local herds, what's happening with the local environment. And that kind of information is like, it just gives you such a good overall picture of what to expect, where to find critters. Like, there's a burn out here outside of Laramie. And if you talk to Lee, he's like, dude, this is dangerous for me to talk about on a podcast, but it's Alaskan, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So, but when you're talking to Lee, he's like the local biologist. He's saying, look, all of this ponderosa and lodgepole pine that just torched is going to be replaced with aspens and bitterbrush, and is going to create epic deer habitat in this place. So you're looking at 3-4 years down the road, holy cow, it should be really just packed with deer. But that's information that you don't necessarily know by looking at it on Google Earth, or Onyx. You got to like talk to people who have boots on the ground, who are literally like going in there to pick up deer collars in February, and who are looking at the aspen regrowth going like, oh, this is good,
Yeah. The same thing up here when people try to scout and do it yourself for deer. They look at the clear cuts, and the old image. It doesn't take very long for stuff to regrow here, and it grows so thick. So it looks like it's prime, but it's only got about 2 or 3 years where it's just amazing deer habitat. And then it's grown up and you can't see anything and it's over. So you're getting way back into the spot. You think it's going to be perfect, but you can get a good idea on Google Earth and on X, but man, unless you've seen it, then you could be trying to recalibrate their outfield.
Yeah, you bet. So do you end up hunting blacktails like up in the Alpine very often? Is that an option for you guys?
That's my
That's your jam.
that is the thing. Yeah. So, usually opening day, and as much as I can before. I think I did 7 or 8 trips, overnighters, and it's great to be up there. Even if it's raining, some of those rainy days are great because as soon as it clears and pops, then that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's one of those hunts actually that is pretty accessible. I feel like I is kind of on my list. It's on the short list because that just seems like something that would be gorgeous. I've seen, like Randy Newberg did that whole reindeer video, the film. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that looks just like an epic place to be. And that's half like at least half of why you would go to some of these places is for the scenery and like the adventure of going to that spot, I mean, maybe a hunter evolves to being like, I only want to go to this place for big critters, but at some level, man, I would go to these places just to hike to the top and see what's up there, whether I had a rifle with me or not. I think that's part of the beauty of hunting is it takes you to cool places.
Yeah. I also like one of the underappreciated aspects of some of these trips is that the people only are in town for long enough to leave town, and they don't really get an idea of who it is that lives here year round. Like who lives in the shadow of these mountains, So I think and that's why I try to keep that in mind when I go to places. And I was down there for 7 weeks this last summer, and girlfriend and I would take different trips out to the Bighorns, to fly fish and all these different areas. And I wanted to go to the local fly shop and walk to the downtown and just get an idea of who lives here, who are the residents. So I'm not just go to the river and fish there and become acquainted with the cutthroat trout, but also get the kind of the story of the people. Like, it just makes the experience a little bit more rich.
It's the difference between like coming to a place and acting like a local versus acting like a tourist. A lot of things like as I grew up in a super small town. I grew up on a farm in Northeast Oregon, and it was kind of the rule of the West was like to leave a place better than you found it. And I don't think you can do that if you don't have a full appreciation for everything that's around you. So, it's easy to go to some place and, whether you're going to Vail to go ski the slope, right? I don't think you're necessarily going to, if you're going to go buy your $300 lift ticket and ski down a couple times and go home, like, I don't know if that's necessarily acting like a local, Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just is like something to consider.
Yeah. I think if you get an entitled consumer type attitude where you've paid your money and so you are entitled to the fish, you're entitled to the run, you're entitled to the animals, whatever, then I think that's when people start to make desperate type situations and start to get too excited about showing people what they got on their trip and less about enjoying the experience, enjoying the scenery, enjoying the people. And that makes the trip better.
It's the same thing as, here's a loop back for you. It's the same thing as like doing any sort of like business endeavor or personal project or like side hustle. It's this whole idea that you better be enjoying this whole ride. And that's really what makes the experience a better experience. Because if you don't enjoy the process of getting, either getting that bull elk or catching that big cutthroat or skiing that line, like if you don't enjoy getting there, then it's really tough because it's such a small part of the full experience is actually the win, Yeah.
So once you do get something down and you are looping it all the way back to food here, what are some favorite ways to process or to the snacks that you're making out of the animals? What are some of the favorite things to do? I get a little bit frustrated because I haven't done a lot of this stuff. I have some buddies who've made brats out of bear, and mine makes this unbelievable jarred sockeye. And so I think about how many sockeye I would have to like kind of ruin in order to get the recipe right. I'm going to trade him some ground venison. I'll get the sockeye, and I won't have to worry about it.
So I like I was kind of saying, it came from like a ranching family, and we oftentimes would have our own critters butchered there at the house, and then when the mobile butcher comes to the place, he does his deal, hangs the meat and the carcass in his refrigerator, and then he's got all the organs left over. And I was kind of partially raised by my grandpa, and grandpa would always grab all the organs, the tongue, different stuff like that. And so those are some of my favorite pieces, which is kind of weird. We would do this always with game meat too. So, but it was just something we got a lot of practice with because we were butchering stuff on the farm. So I actually have a buffalo tongue in my freezer. I got to do something with, probably making tacos out of it, because it's a big enough tongue that you can do something a little bit more elaborate. But dude, I grew up on like liver and onions. Like that is one of our staples whenever we had anything down as far as wild game or butchered on the farm. Liver and onions was like the go-to. And a lot of people hate it, which I don't like. I fully understand like that there's a texture deal going on there that's a little bit weird, but it's a favorite for me for sure.
Huh. Do you do any sausages or jerkies or smoking things?
We always did a lot of jerky. I like to make a breakfast sausage. I actually did that with my spring bear last year. I turned a ton of it into breakfast sausage. Not because bear tastes like very strong. I just like the breakfast sausage. That was one of my favorites. It depends on what critter it is, because like with a bear, I tried to make some jerky, and then I was like being real finicky trying to get it up to that 160-degree temperature. And I ended up burning a bunch of it. So I was like, okay, instead of trying to do that and burning more jerky, I'm going to end up just making it into different ground beef or ground meat sausages. And then I do some roasts. And then oftentimes, like, I just do steak and do a lot of like fried steaks. And that's just kind of like, again, I probably have a little bit more of like a hometown style to making these critters than maybe like the new age folks like at Meat Eater or whatever. Like I've never made like ossobuco, but that seems really, or I've never like played with caul fat. Like that's a little bit more of a new agey thing, but something else that's also good. So one year we got, what did we get? 4? Between like the whole family, we had like 4 deer down. And so we did Rocky Mountain oysters. And that's a really good one. And it's funny because like all of the stuff that we've made, it's, it's like breaded and then you dip it in ketchup or like you do different things. It's not like a glamorous, like, oh, taste the wild game meat flavors. We do that with steaks and stuff, but oftentimes it's like, how can you make this into something that everyone can freaking enjoy? And that's another one, that Rocky Mountain oysters. That's a good one. We also like would we would castrate calves and have big Rocky Mountain oyster feeds and stuff like that. So
we moved up from Colorado when I was 5, and so every time we'd go back, that was one of the things that the dad liked. We had some distant relatives that had a ranch. Mm-hmm. And we always had access to that, and that was kind of fun.
Dude, the thing is, like, most people like will try it because it's like kind of an oddity. Dude, it is actually one of my favorite kind of meals. It's one of the deals. Like, I went to a branding my family was branding 2 springs ago, and I went and I was like, yes, this is an integral part. But it also can be a great part of like game meat, especially when you're talking about your Alaska blacktail seasons, where you can get can you get $3?
Where I'm at,
4?
you get 4.
And if you save all the testicles off those guys, like you've got a full snack for sure. And it's enough snack to freak your friends out a little bit too.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the no wasting any part of the animal sensibility has survived, but now it's at a point where it's weird. You're, that's gross, or is that too much? Are you being weird? Like, no, it's fine. Let's not be weird about it.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird, so I've noticed this maybe a little bit more in the BHA Meat Eater crowd, which I'm not saying I'm not part of it. I just, this is just one way to kind of identify it. There is this movement for the weirder stuff and people like fully taking out everything, doing like a rack of ribs, for instance. And when you're packing out a rack of ribs from the backcountry, I'm like, eesh, that seems like a lot of weight. But I think there's a lot of people who enter hunting from like a sustainable meat sourcing perspective, and when you're looking at it from that perspective, it's like, how can you get the most out of this? And I think one of the things that folks don't take into consideration is like the context of which you got that critter, because like we packed Ryan Lamper's elk out 12 miles, and he did not take the tongue. Like it was one of those deals where he's like, you got to draw the line somewhere. You didn't take the rack of ribs from that one, right? But I think it's a really good component that my girlfriend, who's a non-hunter, points out to me, like that should be more of a conversation that we have, especially with folks who aren't hunters, because we oftentimes, when I say we, I'm like, if someone's been hunting a while, you kind of take that part for granted. You're like, oh, heck yeah, we're going to make a couple 100 pounds out of this elk, of good meat. But it's something I think is still overlooked, even though, with shows like Meat Eater and then like the field to table movements, it's becoming a little bit more of the conversation.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I got a little school to prepare for here, and I'm sure you got some work, got some things to do. So, any closing thoughts? Where can people find you guys and subscribe? And
if you guys really want to try some new snacks, some food for the backcountry, you can check us out at Backcountry Fuel on Instagram or backcountryfuelbox.com. I know a lot of folks here are also going to be hunting podcast listeners, so go check out the Rich Outdoors podcast, which is Cody's podcast, and he just released a elk hunting audio experience. It's really sweet, and so I think that's a really unique approach that he's taken to some podcasting, and you get to be there like along his elk hunt this year. So go check those out. And if anyone has any questions and you send Backcountry Fuel or the Rich Outdoors podcast DM a message, it's either going to be me or Cody responding. So it's pretty intimate little group of people, and we're happy to help anybody out with any questions they've got. Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks a lot. I appreciate
thanks for
you
having
coming
me on.
here.
I really appreciate it.